Welcome back. If you like cruising and exploring the world, we're here to help you plan a better cruise vacation. Already booked your cruise? Well, now is the time to start planning what you want to do in each port. We'll share what we do to maximize our time and get the most value for our money. Right now, we're planning our upcoming Norwegian Fjords Jewels of the Baltic cruise. We've taken several cruises, so we've learned some helpful hints for your next cruise. Let's get started so that we can have the best cruise. The first tip is to start early. Our cruise is more than 6 months away and we're already looking at our tour options. We want to make sure that we get to do the things that we want to in each port. For this cruise, particularly for the Norwegian Fjords section, certain cruise-sponsored excursions are already waitlisted. We've seen this to be more likely for both Alaska and Norway. And for these cruises, the excursions are not cheap. So looking at your options early ensures you can book the tours that you want. Starting early doesn't mean we only book excursions through the cruise line, but if that's our choice, those who book early usually get the best excursions. Later on, I'm going to share when we are more likely to book the cruise line excursion versus a private excursion. We like to start by learning about the cruise port itself. Two resources that we have found to be very helpful are cruisecrocodile.com and what'sinport.com. They are easy to use and provide basic information about the port. Public transportation options such as taxis, bicycles, or hop-on, hop-off buses. They have printable maps, they tell you what currencies are accepted, and they show the number of ships that are in port each day. These sites don't always provide weather information, so you'll want to check that out because knowing the local weather will give you a better idea of what you need to pack. Should you plan for rain gear in Norway, cold weather gear in Alaska, or are you just going to have sunny days in the Mediterranean? Next, look at whether the cruise ship docks or tenders when it's in port. When the cruise ship docks, it attaches to a physical pier where you disembark. However, some cruise ports don't allow the ships to dock. This is called tendering and is either due to a lack of infrastructure or shallow waters. This means you are taken ashore via a smaller tender boat. Tender rides are free, but on some ships you'll need to get a tender number that will tell you what time you can disembark the vessel. So tendering provides an additional complexity for excursions. It is one reason we have a bias for purchasing a cruise line excursion when the ship tenders, since the cruise line will make sure you get back on board before it sails. Knowing how many ships are in port helps you gauge how much demand there might be for private excursions, as well as the impact it's going to have on the city itself. If the port city is small, Geiranger has about 100 residents. It cannot readily accommodate 3 or 4 ships on a single day. On the other hand, Tallinn has a population of about 450,000, is a docked port, and can have 4 ships in port any given day. And then there are certain ports like St. Thomas that have 2 cruise terminals. Both are near Charlotte-Amalie, Havenside, and Crown Bay. Here, the cruise line you're on will determine where you dock. Thus, when booking a private excursion, you'll need to confirm the correct pickup location or how to get to the assigned meeting point. Well, the cruise line will provide you with a short description of the port and show its offered excursions. We prefer to find out about the port's attractions from non-cruise line resources. We primarily watch YouTube videos to see what other travelers have experienced in that port and usually search for Rick Steves before you go or visit the city videos that are produced by the local tourism bureaus for this information. But you can just search on the city and it will lead you to many traveler videos. These videos usually highlight the 10+ best places to visit, must-try food options, or give you pointers for taking local transportation for a city walking tour. For us, it helps us choose what we want to do during our visit. Are you looking for cultural immersion, like visiting a Viking museum or a city walking tour? Are you looking for an adventure, such as a helicopter ride and dog sledding on an Alaskan glacier? Or are you looking for a foodie experience? List and prioritize those attractions that are of interest to you. We've shown what we learned for attractions in Geiranger by looking at visitnorway.com, which showed us 11 tourist options. We reviewed those choices and highlighted the ones that we thought would suit us best, and you'll see those in yellow. We thought seeing the fjord by boat, enjoying the fjord from a high vantage point such as Dalsniba, or finding a leisurely hike would be our best options. Now that you know more about the port and its attractions, it's time to review and evaluate the cruise ship excursions. The cruise line will generally have 8 to 10 options for cruise tours and then categorize them by activity level, easy to strenuous, duration, by activity type, adventure, culture, food and drink, and price. Do these cruise tours include the attractions you want to see? If so, jot them down so that when you review any private tour operators, you can readily compare the excursions. Knowing the key attractions from our earlier steps, we learned 2 of our choices are also offered by the cruise line, which is awesome. However, you can see the circle tours, hiking at Vesterhaus for very active cruisers, and Mount Dalsniba and Eagle Road, which is an easy excursion and one of our choices, are already waitlisted. And it's more than 6 months in advance of our cruise. Here's a real example of why it pays off to start planning as early as possible. Next up, we're going to evaluate our private tour operators. I've listed some websites that I like to use: ventureashore.com and shoreexcursionsgroup.com. Simply enter the cruise line, the ship name, and the date of departure, and voila, you will see what tour options are available. Now it's time to evaluate the private tours. Look at the duration, the cost, the transportation mode. Are you walking, biking, or riding for each attraction? Are any similar to what the cruise ship offers? In Geiranger, private tours included the Geiranger Highlights, City Sightseeing, which is a hop-on, hop-off bus tour, and the Dalsniba Skywalk and Eagle Road tour, so there is some overlap. We then took a deeper dive into the Dalsniba Skywalk tour and found it was very similar to what the cruise ship offered. However, it was at a lower cost and had more time slots available. And since we liked the rib boat option, we Googled to find the tour operator and then found out what it had to offer and liked those options as well. We've evaluated the port's attractions, reviewed the cruise ship excursions and private tours. Now it's time for us to decide and book our tour. Sometimes the best option is still on your own. For Geiranger, we've decided to do the Fjord Safari Rib Boat Tour and then the Dalsniba and Eagle Road private tour, which mirrored the cruise ship excursions, just at different times and at a lower price. Next, we're going to share why we chose to do the private tours. Why did we choose a private tour? For several reasons. One, we could do 2 tours in one day since the ship's offerings all started at 8 a.m. For our tours, we started at 10 a.m. and then we did our second tour at 1 p.m. Thus, we were able to have a very busy day in port. 2, our ship was the only one in port that day, meaning that the town was less busy. 3, it was less expensive, and 4, the vendors were able to provide us with ease of mind that we would be able to do both tours and get back to the ship on time because we did not tender. So in this instance, we felt that our research paid off. Let's explore the pros and cons to choosing a cruise line sponsored excursion. First, it's easy to book. Simply go to the cruise website and make your selection. Second, if your tour runs past the all aboard time, the cruise line will wait for you to arrive and board the ship. That takes away this worry. Change your mind and want to cancel the tour? Easy. Just remove it from your itinerary and the cruise line will credit your account. Note that this would not apply if you are outside of the cancellation window. And finally, the cruise line has vetted the vendors for reliability and guest experience. Now for the negatives. You may think that the cruise line will offer the must-see attractions, and for the most part they do, but some tours may not be offered. For example, in Garanger, there was no mention of the hop-on, hop-off bus tour. The cruise line options will also be more expensive as well. With that said, we will normally book cruise ship excursions in these 3 situations. 1, if the ship tenders. 2, if the tour uses a boat or ferry, which can break down. And 3, the tour starts at a distance away from the port, such as in Italy, where Rome is about 2 hours from the port of Civitavecchia, or in Germany, where the Warnemünde port is about 2 to 3 hours away from the city of Berlin, as this shifts the responsibility of getting us back on board to the cruise line. Now let's look at why you should book a private tour. In some locations, such as the Caribbean, there are many local taxi drivers who will take you sightseeing on the island. Second, private tours are less expensive as there's no cruise ship overhead. The negatives here are that there's more legwork that has to be done by you. You will need to ensure you know that if the tour is on ship time or if it's on local time. And this is important when the cruise ship changes time zones. You will also need to ask more questions of the tour operator. Things like, what's your cancellation policy? Can you reserve the tour with a small deposit, or do you need to pay up front in full? Do you get a refund if the cruise ship, for whatever reason, cannot reach the port? How far is the port from the meeting location? Another quick tip, if you want to do a hop-on, hop-off bus tour, don't book it through the cruise line. It's always cheaper and easier to book that on your own. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful and was filled with some tips that you can use when you plan your next cruise vacation. While this is how we go about our planning, feel free to tailor it to your needs. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's most appreciated. Bye for now.